How he is. This is not the type of video that I'm very used to doing. But after a lot of consideration and chatting to quite a few people, I feel just quite compelled to say something. So I wanted to talk about this video, Minor Issues. It's a kind of show of sorts that Channel 4 and Wall of Productions put out on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. The premise of which is kind of rappers and influencers interacting with and kind of having banter with kids and teenagers. Either Channel 4 and Wall of Productions didn't do any sort of research, which is quite irresponsible, I think, or they did do research and they went ahead with the show in anyway, which I think is equally as irresponsible. So for those who are not aware, this gentleman here, his name is Twin S, or Sabir Rashid is his real name. He's a rapper from Beckton on the south side of Newham in East London. He is associated with the group ACG or the Sixth, a collective known as the Sixth, which is a reference to the E6 postcode that Beckton sits within. He's quite recently a MOBO winning rapper and is... he won the award for kind of best rising star. He's also, or certainly was, one of the prime suspects in the murder of Corey Jr. Davis in Forest Gate in 2017. So for anyone that's been following me a while now would have seen me speak about CJ before. His mum, Keisha, has become a really close friend of mine over the last 2 years or so. CJ was shot dead in a playground in an estate in 2017. He was shot in the head with a shotgun. Another boy was hit in the leg at the time. He was only 14 years of age, and the murder actually remains unsolved. Now, Twin S and then his brother, Twin H, were both arrested and questioned following CJ's murder, and they were both released without charge. So I would like to make it very clear that I'm not accusing them of killing CJ. However, it remains a fact that they certainly were suspected of, at the very least, having involvement or kind of intimate knowledge of this murder. Twin S is a close associate of Young Diz, who targeted CJ's mum, Keisha, in a song called Smoky Things, the video of which actually featured both Twin S and Twin H. Diz in this song kind of taunted Keisha and claimed that he laughed when he saw mum burying and crying for her son and burying her son. Young Diz has also made kind of another number of references in prison freestyles that he's done or other videos that would suggest that he does have some sort of involvement or intimate knowledge of the murder. Now, I think it's really important to know, and something that I want to make quite clear, is that I'm not criminalising these men for their music or for the persona that they may or may not portray. In fact, I believe in and I support, and I've actually seen firsthand the transformative and cathartic role that music can play in the lives of young people, particularly those living in violent environments. I can acknowledge and appreciate that Twin S, his brother H, Young Diz, and so many others have grown up surrounded by violence, and I'm sure experienced their fair share of trauma in their lives. Young Diz has actually spoken about this openly in a documentary he did a few years ago. They've been institutionalized by their environments, and they are only a product of the things that I've spoken about before. Poverty, deprivation, social exclusion, educational exclusion, the Prue system, historical and systemic injustices that exist in communities in London. Hip hop and more recently the drill movement is simply a reflection of these conditions and an insight into the lives of those most affected by them. Now, with that said, I've always felt very torn when it comes to drill due to the kind of the hyper personal and hyper localized nature of the lyrics that have, unfortunately, too often spilled out and spilled over into reality and had real world consequences. Drill music isn't the problem. Drill music has never been the problem. The problem is much more complex and multifaceted. However, drill music does have a role to play, and artists like Twin S and others blur those lines between reality and music. And for this reason, I feel incredibly uncomfortable and something just doesn't sit right with me with having Twin S in this program, given his music, his online personality, his history of violence within the borough of Newham and beyond, and most importantly, the alleged involvement in the shooting dead of a 14-year-old child in broad daylight beside a playground. Now, further to this, Twin S is actually only recently released from prison for kidnap, torture and false imprisonment of a man in Brixton in South London. Now, in contrast, someone else that appears in the video is Conan, of the duo Krept and Conan. And I see in Conan another young man who's brought up around gang culture and violence and in an environment that has been, impoverished and marginalised. However, Conan has transcended this environment through his music and his business ventures, and he's made a better life for himself. He's also been incredibly open about his past, and has done what he can to better himself in an attempt to help out other young people who've experienced the same things as him. He's spoken out about mental health, spoken about his own struggles with PTSD. He actually did a documentary with Channel 4 a few years ago about this. And he does a huge amount of philanthropic work in his community to empower, employ and, support and motivate young people in the borough of Croydon and beyond. Now, I see these as the types of people that need to be, uplifted and celebrated in, online shows. And these are the kinds of people that young people should be looking up to. Now, again, I do need to make it exceptionally clear that I'm not accusing Twin S of murdering CJ or having involvement in the murder. Now, that said, he certainly was, or even still is, a prime suspect in the shooting. And it's the shooting of a vulnerable child, a 14-year-old child, in broad daylight, beside a playground. And it feels wrong to give him a platform. Particularly given the premise of the show and having Twin S engaging with playful banter with kids the same age as CJ was. And I doubt the parents of these young children that were involved in this video, were aware of Twin S's alleged involvement in or links to the murder of a 14-year-old child, the same age as a lot of their children are. And I see this as a failure by Channel 4 and Wall Productions to properly safeguard the children that are involved in the show. And unfortunately, this is how grooming takes place, either online or in person. Children watching this video end up looking up to these, men, completely disregarding the kind of seriousness of the crimes that, he has been allegedly linked to. This, glorifies his past criminal activity. Okay, and doesn't make it a learning or teachable moment, and it glorifies the violence that ravaged the borough of Newham over the past 10 years or so, that has made, sadly and tragically, Newham have the highest rates of murder since 2010 in London. And I just think it's wrong, and I think Channel 4 didn't do their due diligence, and they have a lot to answer for in that. And I just felt like I think it was important to touch on, to note, and to speak about, given the work I do in London and the writing that I've done. Now, as always, I want to end the video just by saying rest in peace to CJ, and that I pray that his mum Keisha gets the justice she deserves, and that the people that are responsible for the murder are brought to justice.